What is up, dreamers, and welcome to the Audacity to Heal podcast. I am your host, Marletta Jammer, and you might know me in these digital streets as the professional dreamer. If you're joining for the very first time, this isn't just any podcast. This, my friend, is a place where dreams meet reality, where stories of healing take center stage, and where every moment is a celebration of the audacity it takes to heal. Life has a way of throwing us curveballs, and trust me, your girl has navigated some unexpected times herself. But through it all, it has unearthed a resilience in me that I truly didn't know that I had. For me, my journey became a canvas painted with those twists and turns, and what led to an even deeper connection to my faith. I've come to understand that healing and renewal aren't just words, nor are they a linear path. Healing isn't about the destination, but it is everything to do with the journey. I look forward to sharing my journey, intimately, authentically, and yes, sometimes hilariously. So whether you're tuning in on your morning commute, joining us live, or discovering us in the wee hours of the night, I want you to know that healing is an art, and you are a masterpiece in the making. With that said, there will be tears, lots of laughter, wisdom, and a whole lot of healing. This, my friend, is the Audacity to Heal, where we are audacious enough to believe in healing, boldly standing in our truths, and unapologetically pursuing the life we deserve. So, if you're ready, I'm honored to have you aboard this incredibly audacious ride. Welcome, y'all. Welcome to the Audacity to Heal podcast. I am your host, Marletta Jammer, also known as the professional dreamer, and I am so honored and so excited to have this show tonight. It is truly God's ordained timing and a full circle opportunity to share and to talk and have conversation with my sister, Dr. Nisa Jenkins. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Jenkins at a unique time in the world. It was actually during the pandemic, and thanks to Marilyn, Dr. Marilyn, as some may call her. She brought us together in a unique sisterhood, and we forged a friendship, which ultimately led to our sisterhood. And we've had the privilege of being in touch and staying together in our sisterhood over these years. And I'm just so grateful for this conversation. I'm so thankful that she had the time to sit and chat with us tonight. So if you all would do me a favor and in your chat box, help me welcome my guest, Dr. Nisa Jenkins. Dr. Jenkins, thank you so much again. I would just love for you, in your own way, to introduce yourself to the audience and let them know who you are, where you're from, and shout out your people because I know they're watching too.
Oh, Marletta, it is so good to be here with you tonight. I'm like super, super excited. So y'all forgive me, but I can't stop smiling. Just being able to be here with you to see where you are, what you're doing is just so super
Thank
exciting for me. But just a little intro about myself. I actually reside in Conyers, Georgia, outside of Atlanta, about 25 minutes outside of Atlanta. Originally, though, I'm from Waukegan, Illinois, a small town outside of Chicago. I've been here in the Atlanta metro though for over 18 years. So
Wow.
yeah, this is home for me now. I'm
This,
actually the mother of two children, two adult children. My son Charles Isaiah and my daughter Camara Jenkins, who's gone on to be with the Lord. But yes, I am founder of I Am Beautiful 2 Ministry, author of Speak Up, I Can't Hear You, the Voice of a Woman. And I have been at this thing since 2008 or even before, but just really coming around the bend with some new things that God is doing in my life. So yeah, it's
amen.
just good to be here and good to be able to share what God has given me and expound on that with you and everybody who's listening in. So thank you tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again. I have always been
the one kind of in the room to just sit back and watch. And I have always admired Dr. Jenkins. She carries herself with such grace. She's one of those women that reminds me of like a Claire Huxtable or somebody. She just carries herself in that way, y'all. And she just is such a regal young spirited woman, and I just have always gleaned from that, her wisdom. And so we're just going to get into our conversation tonight. One of the things that always connected me to Dr. Jenkins, and I don't know if she remembers this, during our time where we were a part of the sisterhood, there was a speaking opportunity that I had where we talked about words and
Mhm.
speaking. No coincidence that here we are yet again.
Yes.
And one of the things that I have always made a conscious, intentional effort to do is to watch my words and to be mindful of the words that we speak.
Yes.
I had the opportunity to study this during that time. And one of the things that I always, or that I found fascinating during that time, was that the Bible actually mentions, and I had to pull up my notes, there are 3,500 verses in the Bible that talk about how we use words.
Yes.
So if we
Wow.
don't believe that the words that we speak are important or are powerful, that says it in itself. The
Yeah.
one who created us found it to be that important that he put it that many times into the Word of God. And so Dr. Jenkins had this slogan, and she would always put it on like different social media things. And so I had an opportunity to work with her, and I'm like, "Speak up!" Oh man, that is such a powerful phrase. Speak up! I can't hear you. And even though she never said it, just every time I read it, I just imagined her saying that with just force and power. And so I just want to kick off with our conversation going into, where did that phrase come from? And during your intro, you mentioned the I Am Beautiful Too
Mhm.
ministry. So I would love for you to share with our audience about that, and to also share about that amazing phrase and statement that you say and have.
Certainly. So I'll start with I am beautiful too, because speak up, I can't hear you comes out of that pretty much. But I am beautiful too is my ministry, in which that what I was really trying to focus on is women. We have so many things that we do, Marletta. We go so many places. We handle our children. We have our husbands. We have our family members. We have those we're connected to. But in doing all of that, we have to stop sometime and realize, you know what, yeah, I'm all of that to them, and everything else, but I am beautiful too,
Oh,
inside
wow.
and out. We go through some things, we've had some challenges, everybody has, in
Right.
some way or another. But I would say to myself, especially in dealing with the passing of my daughter, having to give a child back to God, and then being able to one day have to really realize that in spite of all that I've gone through, I am beautiful too. That has really catapulted me throughout out my days, to help me to reach back and grab that. And in
Yes.
doing so, when I started I Am Beautiful 2 Ministries back in 2008, Speak Up, I Can't Hear You was birthed out of that. And I had started working on my book way back when we had the 3 1/4 floppies, all of that. And I just never could
Wow.
get it, I know, right? And then you know how the computers where you couldn't use those anymore, so I would lose
Right.
it and don't know where it is. Then I'd have to start again. But over time, God was dealing with my heart about speaking up, being able to
Wow.
speak up. I mean, because so many times we go into a room, we're in a boardroom, we're in the store, we're talking to family members, and we don't always speak up about the things that are important to us. We don't tell people
Amen.
how we feel about certain things, or we just don't say, hey, that was my idea too.
Wow.
Didn't you hear me? Or I have something I want to say. We don't do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
We in our own minds, sometimes we get trapped, or we
Right.
think that they don't want to hear what I got to say, so I'm not saying nothing. And to
Mhm.
me, you have to press past that. You've got to speak up so someone can hear what it is that you have to say, because in our words, as you mentioned, it is mentioned many times in the Word of God. But the
Yes.
thing is, too, is that God wants us to have conversation with Him. You know what I mean? So our voice must be important.
Yes.
Be powerful. There must be something about the vibration in our voice that people need to hear. So I
Yes.
think that's important, that we need to speak up, and I think we're in a time where there are many issues that we can speak up about. But I do think personally there's some things that we need to speak up about and share with people so that we can grow and move forward in our lives.
That's so good. Man, that's so good. You hit the nail on the head. So often we feel that our voices are not worthy of the spaces that we hold or that we're in.
Yeah.
And then there's that little voice inside, and I can attest to that, having that little voice like, I got something to say. I
Yeah.
want to say something, but not having that confidence
Yeah.
sometimes, and not having sometimes feeling the permission to speak up. And that just takes me into, I want to go a little bit into the book that
Hmm.
you have now published, because Dr. Jenkins is an author, y'all.
Yeah.
And she has recently published this amazing book. Speak Up, I Can't Hear You. No, Speak Up, I Can't Hear You, the voice of a woman, as she mentioned earlier. And she shares in this book some things that really resonated with me. How um, the journey to finding her voice goes way back to even childhood. And so I want you to share a little bit about the book. You gave us a little tidbit that you had been working on the book for a while,
Yeah.
back when the floppy disk was a thing. Some people watching might not even know what that is.
Oh,
But share a little bit with everyone how you kind of got into the writing of the book and some of your experiences that you share here in the book.
sure. So I'll have to start with, think about it now. Technology moves pretty fast, and it has in the last 20, 30 years. So the
Yes.
floppy thing, we just moved from one type of computer to the
To
next. So
next.
just want to say that for those who think, oh, way back then, but it was around 2008, so the
Right.
3 and a quarter and that kind of thing. So, but one of the things that led me to write the book was just going through all of the experiences that I had. Anytime that I am getting ready to speak or share a word, I am spending hours before the Lord, months, and because you got to get ready. He's got to give you what it is you got to say, and you got to go through some healing. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I'm writing all of that
Amen.
down, and so in that process of just writing things down, I was able to do a collaboration of things that I've written and shared over the years, in order to pull the book together. And I have to give shout out to first of all Dr. Lisa Campbell, who introduced me to
Yes.
Catherine McClure at McClure Publishings. And
Wow.
Catherine is a miracle worker. She just helped me really get things together, because I think that that's what was the hindrance, not knowing what do I need to do, and having
Right.
had several workshops and webinars, it just still seemed so far out of reach. But I
Right.
knew that it was God's timing for me to meet her, and for her to walk me through the process of publishing my book and helping me pull together all the things that I had, and then pulling things out of me that maybe I needed to elaborate on, and
Right.
share a little bit more, and just asking questions that really helped me arrive at even more information and share more of my feelings as I wrote the book. And she really works with you to do whatever it is that you want to do. And I just told
Wow.
her, I said, I want this book has taken me since 2008. I need to make sure that I am sharing it and it's brief, so people, it's an
Yes.
easy read. I know we live in a technology driven world. I am an educator full time, and
Hmm.
students do not want to read. People do not want to read anymore. So I told her, I said, make this one, let me make this one a easy read, easy to look at on the pages. People don't get overwhelmed because there's not that
Yes.
many words on the page. So it's an easy read, y'all.
It is.
uh, just working with her through the process of doing that, and it was just really a blessing, and it has been all the conversations that we've had. Sometimes I can call her and say, "Oh, just got a minute," and that means an hour, because we're going to share the word. She's going to encourage, I'm going to encourage her. And
That's awesome.
it's just really, really been a great experience writing the book, and getting it out there, and then working to get it circulated. You want to make sure people are going to read it.
Yes. And you did just that. It is a great, easy read, y'all. I read it in less than a day, actually, and it's not overwhelming. Like she said, the pages are laid out to where you can just follow along. Look, I got my little tabs where I was taking notes and
Mhm.
highlighting. It really is a good read. And so I do want you to share a little bit without giving them too much, though, some of those experiences that you share in the book. And like I said, one of the things that resonated with me was when you shared about being, even remembering as a little girl, things where your voice was possibly silenced
Yes.
in the growing through that process. So if you could just share a little bit about that, and then kind of the overarching theme or idea from that that I really pulled from that was how we don't realize that sometimes those things that are from our childhood carry into adulthood.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
made a post the other day. So often, many people, and I got a good response, so that let me know I was in the house when I mentioned that many of us grew up knowing the phrase "speak when spoken to,"
Yes.
and that was, a very common theme.
Mhm.
In growing up, and so not realizing as parents, and I know that it wasn't meant maliciously, but what it did was it sometimes caused us to have a silence in our voice and not
Yes.
know how to use that. And you shared a story, and so I just want you to just kind of share a little bit about that with the audience.
Yeah. So, growing up, and I'll preface that by saying, Marletta, that our parents did the best that they knew how to do with what
Yes,
they had, the information that they
absolutely.
had. And so, in telling our children to only speak when spoken to, for me, that was something that I internalized, right? And so
Mhm.
when I'm internalizing it, I'm thinking of it as, oh, nobody really wants to hear what I have to say. So most of the time, if I'm conversing with my sister or
Mhm.
who's just a little bit older than I. So imagine our conversations are similarly on the same level. I
Right.
think that when we have the opportunity to speak with people who are on higher levels or older than us, we get, as you mentioned in your intro, wisdom. We
Yes.
get different life lessons. We begin to think differently about things. I think that's why it's so important for us to surround ourselves with people who think on a higher level than we do, so that we can go to greater places in our mind. It will expand our mind, cause us to grow in
Yes.
our thought processes. But when you tell someone to speak only when spoken to and they internalize it, it can be a hindrance for some. Now, my sister got the same lesson, but she does not hold back, right? So she didn't internalize that. She went on, and maybe for her, she had a conversation with herself or said what she had to say anyway, but nobody heard it, right?
Mhm.
But I was that child who took it and internalized it, and so for most of my life, I've carried that with me. Well, they're not talking to me. They don't want to hear what I got to say, and so
Wow.
I'm already an introvert. So then you are a little, mix that with a little bit of shyness, and you might not talk at
At
all.
all.
So I just think it's important to know that sometimes people do things that they are used to doing over time. Now, what did I do when I reared my children? I allowed my children to speak their minds, and
Right.
sometimes I was like, "Oh, should I have told you to speak when spoken to?" We just had conversations about things, and
Mhm.
my sister and I laugh often about the fact that my son will say what's on his mind. My daughter would too, and so it's just amazing. And when my mother knew that, she knew that, so she would tell me, "Yeah, your kids they go where you are." But I wanted them to be able to share what it was that they were thinking. Um,
Right.
and I wanted to expose them to higher levels of thinking, and not make them feel like, what you have to say is not valuable, because it
Right.
is valuable to me and to anyone else who needs to hear it or is in the area of your
Absolutely.
voice.
Absolutely. I love that you said that, expose them to higher thinking. That's a different perspective, that rather than just allowing them to just be in the midst of grown folks conversation. That's another one.
Yeah.
It exposes them to higher thinking. And that just made me just think about my childhood. Like, I grew up around a lot of older people, my grandmother, and so I was exposed to that wisdom. And so every time I would be around sometimes my peers, they'd be like, you just," or even other adults, they would say, "You got an old spirit." Well, it was
Yeah.
because I was around older people, but I was exposed to that higher thinking. And I think that is so important to allow children to have that exposure to higher thinking. And even as you said, adults, having people around you that think higher than you. That
Yeah.
is so important for our growth and our expansion of our minds. And so I want to go into one more thing about that. Let me look at my notes here. Because when you were writing
Mhm.
about that experience, you also shared about an experience where um, you were, I think you said you were a little girl and you were even blamed for something. And
Mhm.
instead of speaking out, you retreated.
Yes.
Is that a little bit kind of from what you were sharing previously about that not feeling like your voice was important, or
Yes.
what was that?
Definitely. To me now, I would define that as intimidation. You know, you're so
Mm,
intimidated that you don't use your voice to even speak up for yourself when you know you haven't done it. It just seemed like to me in my mind, I felt like, well, it wasn't. It's not worth it. I'm not gonna keep trying to go back and forth because you were taught not to.
right.
So you just took it and you went on. But for some people, internalizing something like that, it can cost you to for almost a lifetime to
Yes.
retreat, to not feel like you know. And there are times when I am not as uh bold, you know,
Right.
in my first mind. But then I remind myself, hey, wait a minute, something's not right. Somebody's doing something that does not feel right, or they've misunderstood something. So now I go the step further to explain. And I did want to say too, my letter, when I say higher thinking, I think we when I say that, I just mean that our critical thinking skills engage more instantaneously than they
Oh,
would if we don't engage in with other
that's good.
people on a higher level. Immediately our critical thinking skills come together and we're able to think about things in a different thought process.
I like
So,
that.
you know, I think that's important to just note as I say that. I don't want anybody to think that, you know, anything other than it's just
Right.
engagement of critical thinking skills. Because I think we see now a lot of younger people may not have as active of critical thinking skills as they need.
Right. That's such a good point.
Mhm.
You had said something a moment ago. Let me see if I can call it back. You were talking about that boldness that you had to that you now consciously have to take activation of. So
Yeah.
can you just share, was there a turning point in your adulthood that you began to kind of shift or change that thought process? When did that become a conscious effort for you to have to activate that or begin to reclaim that silence that you naturally retreated to?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a turning point. But let me say this: I believe that speak up, I can't hear you is a spiritual journey for me.
Uh,
It's not happenstance. It's something that God knew that I would need for such a time as this. That He knew that I would need it after having to give my child back. So it's been over the years that you know He's been pruning me and shaping me, is so that now I'm so conscious of my dialogue with people that I just won't say just anything. Now there are times when you know you can get angry and you
right.
say things that you may regret. But even in that, you know, there's always the lesson. So if it is an opportunity where I said something that I shouldn't have or something out of turn, there's a lesson. The conviction of the lesson is so direct
Yes.
that he teaches me how to handle someone else, how to say what it is I need to say, or even to think about it before the conversation happens. I
Right.
think that that's so important as we think about the art of communicating, because sometimes we say things so instantaneously we don't take that breath. So I don't know where I was the other day, and I was looking at somebody who was a little irritated with what was going on, and I was like, well, I was saying to myself, for that person, take a breath.
Mm,
Breathe for just a second because it gives us that minute to just kind of think it through. Okay, wait a minute. Now, how am I going to handle this? How's my then that's the activation of my critical thinking skills.
I
How am I
like
going to
that.
handle this? What do I need to say? So I think it's important to do that and to also be bold within yourself in doing that. Because sometimes we'll be like, oh, I don't feel like it today. I don't feel like, you know, but we have to do it
Yeah.
because for people who are very similar to me, we have to do it because any day that we retreat and don't do it could set us back, right?
Yes.
But and so I just keep moving forward. I needed to be able to speak up for myself after the passing of my daughter. I needed to be able to say the things that I needed to say. I needed to talk about what hurt. I needed to talk
Mm,
about you know the grief, the pain, and not
yeah.
hold that back. To be comfortable enough to say. Even in the workplace, when it is a time of the year that I'm not feeling as bright or as
Right.
aware because I'm grieving, to say to
Right.
my coworkers, hey, it's not a good time for me right now. Can we get this meeting on the road
That's good.
and be okay with that? And then being okay because I've shared with them what I've gone through.
Right.
We don't have to share every detail, but we have to make people respect what it is that we feel. And to me, that's setting boundaries within ourselves, within our circles.
That's so good. Oh man, that last part there, being able to communicate even in our work settings what
Mm.
you're feeling
Yeah.
and the importance of that. So often I think that's that silent part of us that wants to retreat and not say anything because we don't want to share that vulnerability, but that's even healing to be able to share that right now I'm in a grieving this is a grieving time for me. Um and so that is so, so important.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love about your book, and this
Mhm.
is something that has been a part of my own personal healing journey, is that you include journaling prompts and pages at the end of the book.
Yes.
And for me, that was one of the ways that I began to reclaim my voice in many seasons of my life. If I'm honest, not just this recent season, but it's a skill that I learned even as a kid. I was recently
Mhm.
cleaning out some storages and found journals that I have from when I was in like the fifth grade. So I've always journaled, and then along the way, life gets to life, and you put the journal maybe entry, and then you don't pick up that journal for another 3 years. And so it was something that I had gotten out of the habit of doing. But
Uh-huh.
during the previous season that I walked through, I found myself struggling to find my voice.
Yeah.
And journaling was one of the ways that I began to reclaim my voice. Being able to not have to say it maybe out loud to people because I didn't really know how to articulate certain things that I was maybe feeling, but being able to have that journal to just get it out, even if it didn't make sense for anybody else to read. It was therapeutic and cathartic for me. So,
Yes.
what was your thought process in including that? And was that some of the thought process that you also shared in wanting to have journaling in your book?
Yes, definitely. I used to journal every day for years. I had so many journals full of content. In fact, that's somewhere one of my thoughts in terms of next book.
Yes,
Some of those journals that I have. You know, when you feel like your voice isn't as relevant, sometimes I would just journal about marriage, the highs and lows of marriage, the
yes,
raising kids, the weight gain, the weight loss, the all of those things, the workplace, trying to be a professional, what degree am I getting next, all of those things I would journal about. What hurt, what did they say to me, all of those things I would just write down. And then as we started coming together more with Marilyn Pettigrew, I would journal and then wait for God to speak to me, and then journal
yes.
what I felt God was saying. So I mean, I have journaled forever, and I as far back as, wow, 80, 86,
Wow.
80, 89. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
And so I just when I was writing this book, one of the things I said to Kathy McClure, I said, Kathy, I want to make sure that this is all in one book. And because
Mhm.
sometimes you will have a journal that's separate. I want
Yes,
people to be able to go in this book, not have to go pick up another one. I want it all to be in one book so that
in
they
one
can
book.
start writing as they go through. You get a thought in your heart, and you just want to write it down, so you don't have you want to flip back to the front and say, okay, what now, and then go back. So
Right,
the goal
right.
is to put it all together, but definitely to give women. This book is not just for women. I just want to say that it is for men too, men who want to understand, men who have a voice but feel like they were silenced as well. But I think it's important to be able to write our thoughts down and write our experiences, and share that within ourselves and with God. And then when we pass the books on to others, they get a chance to see, like you said, you got notes, stickies, all of that. And I think it really does make a difference. I still write in the margins of my books till this.
Yes.
I'm reading a book right now by two books, but as a matter of fact, I'm almost ashamed to say, by
No,
Lisa
please.
Kirst. Her devotionals, I read them daily.
That's
Um,
good.
that's probably the fifth or sixth one, but I journal in those books as I read.
Mhm.
And think about the things that God is saying to me, or what I'm dealing with, or just different things that may come to mind. But I think journaling is an important process because it allows us to write about what's in our heart, and not have to feel intimidated because someone's going to hear it or read it. It's our own personal journals. And my plan was, Marletta, I don't think I've ever shared this with anybody, not even my children. But my plan was is with my journals, I'll keep those journals. When I've gone on, my son will be able to read through those journals and be encouraged. And know
Wow.
that his mom went through this, but oh, I see. Because I'll write, how did I come out of it? Might be some
Yes.
months later or a year later, but he'll be able to see, yeah, my mom went through these things too, but she was able to trust God enough to
Wow.
bring her out. So yeah, that is my hope, that I'll never throw them away. I'll keep them, and he'll be able to read them, and then read them and share them with his children. You know,
Yes. That's
yeah,
a beautiful gift, and that takes journaling to a whole nother level. Because I mean, sometimes like we share, we're trying to get it out and go through it, but
yes,
to even think about how that can help somebody else, our own children,
yes,
um, that is a powerful gift and a legacy tool that's a whole different perspective I've never really even thought about for journaling. Like that's a part of your legacy that you can potentially leave your children.
yes.
Um, when you said you're reading multiple books, I am too, so don't feel bad. I got my one book that I'm rereading for the
Uh,
second time, and I shared that on the last podcast. I'm reading the book by Dr. Anita Phillips
uh-huh,
about the Lord, my brain just went blank. I've got it somewhere, but reading that book, and then I have another book that I'm also reading. But one of the things that I feel is so important is legacy.
hmm,
Several
hmm.
projects that I've worked on is it legacy is wrapped up in there. I even had a slogan that I had coined at one time, that I am my legacy.
Yes.
And so I was immediately gravitated to this statement that you made in your book
Hmm.
on page 63.
Uh-huh.
Turn to the page, and you said that our voice can reach back and change a generation in the future. Now, I was sharing with Dr. Jenkins before I read that, like, I have a very photogenic graphic memory, not memory, but mind. And so, as she's saying that, like, I have this imagination where, like, I'm going back to the past, but then I'm like flashing forward to the future all at the same time.
Uh-huh.
And that was such a powerful statement
Yes.
that you made, that we are literally reaching our voice, reaching back. So that means you're changing things that have potentially happened, hurts, generations before you. And
Yeah.
then you're also changing the future at the same time. That is
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
And so I just want you to share with the audience what was your mind thinking as you made that statement, and kind of what was your heart um, wanting to express with that statement.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things, Marletta. One is that in terms of the things that I say and do about myself or to myself,
Mm,
are so important, because I'm shaping and changing through by my words every day. And by that I mean, if you're speaking affirmations to yourself, things that you say about yourself, that is so important, because if we say them, we begin to believe it. You know what I'm saying? So
yes,
I
ma'am.
want to always be as positive as I can toward myself and loving myself, so that I'm not
Yes,
feeding myself negativity out of my own mouth or my own mind. So to me, it is just so important to make sure that I'm speaking good things, because there's somebody coming behind me, and they are of a generation that's connected to me. So I want them to be. We are spiritual beings, hands
yes,
down. We can have the discussion, but we are spiritual beings. So I want to make sure that what I'm saying is it's reaching my son's spirit in a positive way. And then he's going to have children, and his children are going to have children. And we can see it when we see people, and they just so confident, and they saying all this positive thing, and you think, man, they did a good job raising that child. If we really looked, we would find somebody in the bloodline who was very positive, who didn't
yes,
talk down about themselves, who didn't say hurtful words toward one another. And I think that that is just so important, even in a joking manner. You rarely would catch me joking, saying something that's out of charge. Just even as a child, that was just I'd seen relatives get hurt by words, while I stood in the shadows, and so that
mm,
always did something to me. So it's like, man,
yes,
that doesn't feel good. I can tell that it didn't feel good. When
mm,
you look at their face, or later on they just downtrodden after having the discussion. So I just think it's important that we impact our generation through positive words, through the word of God, through
Yes.
love, the love that's in our heart, through knowing who we are. If you know who
Yes.
you are, there's no way you're gonna talk about yourself bad.
Oof.
You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna say bad things, no matter what you're going through.
Right.
What I mean, because it adds weight, it adds heaviness, it activates depression.
Mm.
So all of those things are things that I really try to think of, and it is God is just so amazing, just to even um, give me those things as I'm thinking.
Yes.
It's not something that I've read about it. It was just something growing up. You just knew, man, that's impacting my sister. I could see how she was hurt when she heard the words, and then just
Mhm.
going into the future, what it has done,
Yes.
and the tears that are still shed 30 years later.
Talk
Come on,
about it.
how powerful those words were that were spoken. So we in the process, we've got to be able to share, to talk to somebody about those things, and I think that that's so important. I mean, I can't say enough about the supports that are in my life, the people that I can pick up the phone and call. Primarily, my big sis. I'm gonna call her up, and she's just don't understand what I'm going through. And we weren't always like that. So I don't want anybody to think that those relationships just are like that. Some people are. We had to grow up. We had to grow through a process. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
now we are there for each other and able to help one another through our life situations. And she assured me one day, and this is so profound to me, and it always has been. She called me up one day and we were talking about something, or sent me something, and she said, I was called by God to be your big sister. She said,
Wow.
she said, so I never take it for granted and I never play with it. I'm always
Wow.
your big sister. I mean, to me, I mean, come on. That's
Come on.
you know what I mean? We just
I
siblings.
can hear Miss Henrietta saying that.
So, in terms of her voice and using her voice to speak up,
Yes.
just all of those things have just catapulted me forward. My mother was
Yes.
a very outspoken woman, and sometimes there were things that she said that I'm sure later on she regretted saying. But what it did for me, that it told me that she was confident. I didn't
Yes.
have to. As a woman, I don't judge her for those things. She worked with what she had and what she knew.
Right.
But
Right.
what it did give me is that her voice was important, and she was
Mm.
confident. She was bold, and she was not afraid. So there are some positive aspects of it, and that's what we pull away from those situations, right?
I love that. I love that, Dr. Jenkins. And you that you we it's all in what we choose to take away from. I love
Right.
that you said that. Like you could easily say, well, she, have the one perspective, but you got confidence from that. And
Yeah.
like you said, maybe sometimes she said it and regretted it later, but you watching gained confidence from that.
Yeah.
And so that just shows the power of even us doing the small thing or the big thing. There's always somebody watching that's gleaning in some way from the things that we do. And so again, just as you said, we have to be mindful of the words we speak,
Yes.
not just to people. You hit the nail on the head. I love that you said about the words that we're speaking to ourselves.
Yes.
Like I didn't you just gave me a whole new revelation of that statement from your book when you said that.
Yeah.
Because it's a duality. You're reaching towards the future and the present, for those generations, but also for yourself in the present. Like
Yeah.
you're in the middle of all of those things.
Yes.
And I think it was Dr. Nita Jenkins I watched recently, and she was sharing about the importance of healing forward.
Hmm.
A lot of times when we are thinking about healing or we're trying to reclaim our voice, there's things that we want to say to the person that said it to you 10, 20, maybe 15 years ago. And a lot of times that person doesn't even remember that they said it.
Yeah.
And so the power of healing forward, and that just completely shifted my paradigm when she said that. It really gives you that accountability for how you're choosing to move forward, how you're choosing to speak those words over yourself.
Yes.
Yes, those things may have hurt you and silenced you, but you're taking the opportunity now to heal forward.
Yes.
And I also saw that parallel in your statement as well. And that
Hmm.
kind of ties, as you just gave new revelation to that statement, the importance of us taking accountability of the words we're speaking to ourselves.
Yes.
The craze of affirmations has become very popular in
Yes,
our
it has.
society, and everybody's talking about affirmations. And I I have a aunt who gave me books years ago with
Mhm.
affirmations in it. She's always been a champion of the words that we speak. And so I got that long before it was popular on social media to post affirmations.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you the importance of the words that you speak to yourself first.
Yes. Yes.
And I love that even that kind of changes a little bit the way I even think about speak up. I can't hear you. Like those words that you're saying and those affirmations are literally changing you. And there's science that backs that literally you are chemically changing when you speak certain things over yourself. Even when you talk to your plants, I got my greenery behind me that made me think about plants. Even when you talk to plants a certain way, they
Yes.
grow a different way. So speaking up and using words is not just something that we do casually. It's very important, the words that we speak. And so as we come to a close,
Mhm.
because I really don't want to say a close. We just gonna have a pause because we're gonna have another conversation. Um, I just want you to share with our audience anything that you along the way have found to be helpful in you reclaiming your voice that they can potentially do. I like to provide practical advice because oftentimes when you are an introvert, like we share ourselves, are introverts,
Mhm.
sometimes you're not around people that can provide that practical advice on what do I do? How do I get to a place where I even am conscious enough to speak better words over myself or reclaim my voice? And so I just would like for you to speak to the audience, to that person who potentially is in a place where they are trying to find their voice again and reclaim their voice. What is some things that they can do? And just speak to that person right now.
Definitely. I think one of the key things is realizing who you are in terms of if it can be one thing about yourself that you know, one characteristic that you know and love, it's a positive thing. I want you to take that, use it, go forward and use it, speak it. So for me it was that I realized one day I had been praying, I asked God, I said, Lord, I really want to know your love. I want to feel it.
Oh, that's
I want to
good.
know it on a greater level. You know,
Hmm.
you read it in the word, but I want to experience it.
Yes,
And so, in doing so, I realized one day I am love. I'm love. So, what does that mean to me? Every time you see me, I'm going to give you love. I'm going to give you love. People who are closest to me that I genuinely love and care about, I don't walk away from them without saying, I love you.
I
I love
love
you.
that. Yes,
And I realized that that's what we need to do a little bit more of. So identifying that one characteristic within ourselves, however we do it, if it's something that we already know, or if it's something that we got to go to God for, do that, and then let that be what permeates you and what comes from you, what saturates you, what moves you. What when you walk in the room, it becomes the aura of the room. And don't
mm,
be afraid because nobody has to know that I'm doing that. Nobody knows that but me. I'm sharing this personal experience. So when I walk in the room and I am love,
that's
it
good.
draws everyone to you. They don't even really realize they might be looking at you. I never make the mistake of saying somebody's staring at me because what they looking at? No, baby, I'm love.
Love.
I
Oh,
know
I
that
love that.
so what does that mean? That means that it's somebody in the room who needs the love that God has put in me, his love. So I
That's
want to
good.
share that with someone. And I think that that's important. If your thing is cooking and you know that you do it so well, invite people over to share in your cooking. You know what I'm saying? If you're a person who
That's
loves to
good.
read, invite a group of people over to share in the book, you know, and how well you read, how the words come off the page when you read. Share that gifting with someone. I just want to use some practical examples
That's
because it doesn't
good.
have to be, you know, high level spiritual things. It could just be those things that you love to do. One of the things my sister and I love to do, she loves to design, to wear fashion, to talk to me about clothes. But I know that's her love language, right?
Right.
So I'm often available to just well I get the benefits of seeing new items and seeing clothes that I probably wouldn't know, but it's her love language. It's what she
Yes.
loves to do. So just something like that to me brings you joy. It takes you to a
Yes.
level to do even more with. And then God takes that gift and he uses it how he will. And the next thing
Yes.
you know, you're designing your own clothes and talking to other people who didn't know how to wear certain things. And you know, you're increasing your social circles. It's just so much life in the things that we need to do for ourselves and a gifting that God has put in us. So, you know, I just just encourage, everyone to look at that thing that's so beautiful. And sometimes we just so beat down that we can't see it. But what we
Yes.
can do is someone close enough to you, you can say to them, what is it about me that you like? What characteristic do you see about me? Somebody close enough. Or when
Love
someone
that.
says to you, "Oh wow, you really speak well," or you really do look nice in that outfit. Those are the things that you use.
Love that.
How do I use it? Okay, well, next day I get up, I put on my new outfit, and I'm putting it on a little bit differently. Because someone said yesterday that I look nice in it. So I'm going to use my gifting to enhance this outfit. So it can really start small, but we
Love
just got to we got to be so positive with the incredible God that we serve. We can
Yes.
project positivity to those who are around us and change. We can, like I said, reach back and change a generation.
I
And
love that.
I think that's just so important. And it's never too late, never ever too late to do it.
I
To
love that.
start right now, start right now. And there's so many, I want to just say to the women, there's so many women who've gone through so many things, so many trials and tribulations. But you are beautiful. There's still hope. There's still some work and things for you to do. You have purpose defined by God. And I encourage
Yes.
you to tap into it, to speak up. So that your voice can be heard, your visions can be manifest. I just think it's just so important to be able to tap into who you are and
Yes.
love who you are on every level. It doesn't mean that we're perfect in any way, but it does mean that I love me just the way I am.
I love it. I love that, Dr. Jenkins. And like you said, it's never too late. Oftentimes, I think life and age and time really gets us messed up on that. Even, and I'm 37, and sometimes I'll catch myself like, oh Lord, time. We get this idea about, or the illusion, I call it, of time, and
Yeah.
time has passed, and I haven't done this, or I want to do that. It's never too late.
Yeah.
It's never too late to change the way that we're speaking about ourselves, change the way that we are perceiving the gifts that God has given us. If He gave it to you and you have not seen the fruits of the gift, then it still needs to grow. And you just need to water it and continue to bring that forward until it blossoms into the amazing thing that He has put in you to do.
Yes,
I
definitely.
love that, Dr. Jenkins. Um, how can people find you so that they can be connected? Y'all, I don't know if you've enjoyed this conversation. I have. I could continue talking to Dr. Jenkins all day and night.
Likewise.
I truly, truly love the woman that she is. She's all like she said. She's given us the sauce right now. It's all in how she has already programmed herself to be in the spaces that she holds. She's walking in love. Even in a virtual setting as we met, I still felt that. She makes sure that she always I can count I can't count the times where she just sent a text randomly. Hey sis, I'm thinking about you. Sometimes you don't know how important that one little text to somebody. It doesn't always have to be you speaking those words out. Sometimes it's just texting somebody. You don't
Yeah.
know what that person is going through. And sometimes those texts that she sent, she didn't know what I was going through, but it's like, oh Lord, somebody was thinking about me. And those words resonate. I felt those words all the way here in Texas from Atlanta. So it's so important that we are using our voices in every capacity that we have, not even just speaking those words out. If you're not an orator, if you're not a person that can talk, pick up that phone, send that text, type it, write it, put it in a journal and look at it first, type it in an email. How you use your words are so important and so powerful. But Dr. Jenkins, tell the audience how they can connect with you.
So they can connect with me on Instagram, as well as, and I see it going across the screen right now. And I am, well, it's I am beautiful too, but IAB2NRJ on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter as Dr. Lisa Jenkins. So you can find me there, and you can definitely find me on my website at iambeautiful2ministry.org. Check me out. Check out some of our young scholarship recipients and some of the other work that
Yes.
we're doing in the community. We're getting ready for our women's conference coming up in October. We're just in
Wow.
the beginning stages of planning, but that's coming up as well. So yeah, just all of those places. And if you need me, definitely can reach out to the Audacity to Heal, and get my phone number if you just really need to contact me person to
Yes.
person. And one thing I did want to share lastly was just for all of the moms and dads who are out there who had to give a child back to God. I just want you to know that you don't wake up one day and you are all better or it's all over. And you're moving forward. This has been a journey for me, and I want you to know that always, God has never left me through this journey, even when I thought He did.
Yes.
But I knew enough to say that I needed to get to the Word of God. So I encourage you to always, stay close to God in however it is that you do it. It was the Word for me. And so just making sure, I wanted to say that, Marletta, because I don't want anybody to think that having gone through all I have in the last 5 years, that it's been an easy journey, because it has not. But God has been gracious and kind, and coming from where I have come from.
Yes.
So I just wanted to share that, to say that you're not alone. It's important to find some support. There's someone who loves you enough to hear you, to grieve with you, and then to tell you you cannot stay there. That's what my mentor Diane Smith told me.
I love that.
Yeah, you can grieve, but you just can't stay there. So just
So
want to
good.
say that to those folks, because that's dear to my heart. Even in writing this book and transitioning through the stages of life that I have.
Yes. And as she said, it was on the first page. I think, no, that the book was dedicated to her beautiful daughter. Um, and again, y'all, you need to get the book. I have the website linked there at the bottom. It's scrolling across the screen. You can also purchase a copy through her website, iambeautiful2ministry.org. Get your copy, get your healing, speak up. We want to hear you. I'm adding the extra part to it. We want to hear you.
Yeah,
Somebody needs to hear you. And that speaks to Dr. Jenkins again. I'm going to keep just giving her flowers. As she said, when she was talking just then, the quote, "I don't look like what I've been through," just came in my mind, because
yeah,
she don't look like what she's been through. And that just speaks to her heart, for what she does and the importance that she holds the gift that God has given her
yeah,
despite it all. And
yeah,
so, again, you have a voice, you have things that you need to speak up and say. We want you to walk in power and in confidence in that. And as she said, sometimes it just starts with something small. It might not be you going out having a big proclamation. You might not start the podcast this year. It
right,
might not be you writing the book. It might just be you being in that room where you were once silent and saying, "Hey, I got something to say,"
yeah,
and just starting and going from there. I pray that something was said that sparks that in you. I pray that you watch this podcast back and you begin to reclaim your voice again. That is what the Audacity to Heal is about. It is being audacious in your journey of life, in healing and growing and being the best version of you that you can ultimately be, because that's what God wants. He doesn't want us to stay in the place that we are at in brokenness. As she said, you can grieve, but you can't stay there. And
yeah,
so I love you. We love you. We thank you for tuning in.
yeah.
Again, you can find Dr. Jenkins on social media, from Facebook to Twitter to Instagram. And again, if you need her directly, you can head over to her website, iambeautiful2ministry.com. You know where to find me. I'm going to be on somebody's social media putting up something always. So you know where to find me. I love you and thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Audacity to Heal podcast. We'll see y'all later.
Thank you for
Yes.
tuning in today to the Audacity to Heal podcast. I hope this episode has inspired you and ignited something within you. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a rating or review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you know somebody who could truly benefit from hearing this episode, share it with them. Until next time, keep embracing your journey and remember, you have the audacity to heal.